listening to The Daily Show.
The Daily Show?
The Daily Show.
The Daily Show.
On Men's Radio.
Men's Radio.
Men's Radio.
Men's Radio.
With Russ Kane.
Not half pop is all right. Out of Unit 1 into Unit 2. And how about a little bit of Mr. Dave D, Dozy Beacon Mick, and you know who, all right? You know him, you love him. Straight in at number 1, it's the cheeky boy himself, the king of New Malden comedy, not half, Neil Long.
Hello, good to be here. Really, really busy and exciting show we got for you today.
Crazy day today. Crazy. Not one guest, Neil. Not
but
two guests, Neil.
But three. Got a regular legal eagle, Hatti Suvari. She's chatty, she's Hattie. She really isn't scatty. We got her at 12:30 today. I know she looks forward to it as much as we do.
Work.
Brilliant legal subject. And we're talking about narcissism as well today.
Are we?
Well,
are we talking about narcissism? That's good.
Well, what are you saying? Are you saying I'm offended by that?
No, you're fine. No.
What's your problem?
No one's said anything. No one said anything about you. I mean, really.
You got a problem with me?
No. I mean, you're getting whacked with me, blood. No one's, I can assure you, no one said anything, to me. No one's, sent me emails or, private messages. No. I can assure you.
Sorry, mate. I'm only doing my best here. As I say, we're talking about narcissism later on the show.
Sometimes.
We're only joking, by the way. We're just playing.
Are we? Are we really?
Ah, well, yeah.
Hey, now before our guests join us, I got to just, I am going to plug something. Yesterday, I was very lucky to be invited to the press show of the Paul McCartney photographic exhibition at the National Portrait Gallery. It's up on my Facebook page. Yeah. And I got to tell you, it's absolutely wonderful. It's only pictures taken by Paul McCartney between 1963 and 64. Follows his tour of the UK and then their first visit to America. The National Portrait Gallery, Eyes of the Storm. I can't recommend it enough. It was absolutely stunning. And if you're a Beatle lunatic like I am, I was just lost in the magic of it all. It was magnificent.
It's incredible, isn't it?
I can't tell you. Emma Doughty, we can't see you. So there we are.
No, I don't think you're dialed in properly, Emma. If you can hear us, we can't see you.
There she is. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Neil's special first. No, is it my guest? No, it's my guest.
No, this is you.
I can't keep up, frankly. It's almost like we're running an empire. Ladies and gentlemen, Emma Doughty. Hello, Em.
Hello.
How are you?
To you. Good, thank you.
Excellent.
Good afternoon, Emma. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Lovely to meet you and lovely to have you on the show.
Tell us why you're here.
So I'm here because Slater and Gordon, the firm I work for, we are...
they're a massive firm of solicitors, in case you don't know.
Yes, we are
Slater and Gordon.
We're running a campaign to try and promote advocacy, self-advocacy for patients who are dealing with medical providers, GPs within the NHS. We're trying to use our experiences in clinical negligence cases that we've run and lessons learned to try and sort of help the experience of patients going through the process, their medical process.
Yeah, help in what way? Because this is a huge issue, because I do know that the problems one encounters with one's medical advisors, let's put it into neutral terms, shall we, is a massive trigger for bad mental health. There's no ifs or buts. It's a huge stress. So talk us a bit more about it and dig a bit deeper.
Yeah, huge. So we've undertaken quite a lot of research, a big piece of research, just looking at how people kind of feel about dealing with sort of GPs as first port of call. Do they feel comfortable talking to their GPs? Do they feel comfortable talking about, some of the sort of more, emotive issues? For example, mental health issues, physical issues, which, both men and women find difficult to discuss. And, the research that we have shows that, a very low percentage of people feel that they are actually listened to, that they feel comfortable talking about symptoms that they're presenting with. And in our experience, that leads to real problems, consequences.
I think the first fence to jump in this grand national of ghastliness, and I'm just going to say it, the receptionist. How many people feel rebuffed by the receptionist? How many people can get through the receptionist? Do you have any advice on that? And we never recommend being rude. We always recommend, just having a conversation. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we've all done it. We've all gone up against the receptionist, and they are doing a really important job. They have to stream so many calls, but what we would say is be prepared for that call. Don't just prepare for the GP call, prepare for the receptionist. Have a list of your symptoms, what you think are really important, and be prepared to sort of make those points, read your list. If you're someone who struggles to self-advocate, have someone with you on the call. Ask that person to make the call for you.
I've actually advocated for someone, a friend of mine, sorry to jump in here. He's one of those people, bless him, he thinks he's being rude if he asks for something for himself. And it's really silly. But he found it helpful if I would just at least be there in the background and advocate for him if necessary. So it's quite a common practice, is it? Advocacy in that sense?
Yeah, I think people find it really difficult to advocate for themselves. I mean, I've experienced it myself, and with my own medical care. I mean, if it's my daughter, for example, I will fight tooth and nail to make sure that we see
all over broken glass. Of course, you would, yeah.
Yeah. But for me, sometimes I'm a bit more reticent, and I think, okay, well, I don't want to bother anybody. And our research has shown that view is quite prevalent, and it's become
such a British attitude. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't want to trouble you. No, that's your job.
No, but I was literally before I came on this show, I was talking to someone. Obviously, I won't name her for privacy, but she did exactly the same thing. Exactly, she would give for everybody else, but not for herself. And it's just a question of almost include, mental health lesson for the day: include yourself in the people that you love.
I think that's what we want to get across. It's you're not bothering anybody. It's so important that you make sure that you get help for those symptoms that you've got, because that's what the GP, that's what the medical providers are there for.
That's what they're there for god's sake. Yeah.
That is their job. That's the job. And have you found, and I'm aware you have certain constraints on what you can say, but since the ghastly pandemic, the biggest experiment the world's ever attempted, have you found that people are able less and less to actually sit down in front of a GP, their doctor, a specialist? Is this something that's trickled through?
Yeah, I mean, we all know that the problems that the NHS are having at the moment, and physically getting through to a doctor or seeing a doctor is so difficult at the moment. And it seems that we've become a nation of self-diagnosers, because we automatically think, I'm never going to get through, so I'm just going to go onto Google, I'm going to diagnose myself. And we found such a high percentage of people do that instead of trying to get through to the GP. And whilst that's helpful in terms of, sometimes it gives you a bit of impetus to go to the GP and say, look, I think, what about this, what about that? You can, obviously we need our educated, trained doctors to actually tell us.
Thank you for speaking out about it, because with Google, it's very simple. I get a paper cut, I'll look at it. Oh my God, I'm going to be dead in 3 hours. I mean, that's Google. Everything you get is going to kill you. Guaranteed.
Yeah, beware Dr. Google.
Or Dr. Google that says, actually, everything's fine, don't worry. And then you have this awful cohort of people who don't get diagnosed in time. There's many weeks.
Because with anything, the earlier you catch it, this is the standard advice we've been given all our lives, not just with cancer, but with anything. The earlier you catch it, the more chance there can be a successful intervention. I must ask, obviously this is men's radio station. Interestingly, 50% of the listeners are women, which is interesting. But that's an aside. Are men worse at this than women? Because blokes I know, the last thing they want to do is go to the doctor. It's almost like, oh no, I'd rather not know. It seems to be more of a blokey attitude.
Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, our research definitely showed that men are much more reticent in going to the doctors, especially in relation to certain issues. So issues that they think sort of go against, their sort of, their gender stereotypes.
Their manliness, if you like.
Really?
Yeah.
Exactly
Yes,
that.
don't want to show weakness, but really, guys,
Really?
come on, it's worth getting checked out. If your life depends on it, it's worth doing. And I'm a guy, and I can say that.
I think, mental health's a big one. We found that men really struggle to kind of go to the doctor and talk about it and say,
that's why we started
how
this.
I'm really feeling. And of course, physical issues that affect only men, that they may feel, really uncomfortable about talking about, especially if they might go to a GP appointment and suddenly it's a woman and they're faced with a female GP and
get over it.
They just don't want
get over it, for God's sake. It's not 1947, it is 2023. Here's a question for you, Emma. This is coming in from Wolverhampton. I've had 2 cases where receptionists have delayed access to treatment where there are specific NHS timescales for suspicious moles. Now, nothing sinister. Is just an apology appropriate? Excellent question from Scott Lyons. Excellent.
Now that very much depends. I mean, I'm presuming from that you have written to the GP and you have set out, your issues with that, and you've had a response. If you're not happy with that response, then I would suggest you do seek legal advice on that.
I realize you're going to have a slightly biased trick to my question, or a biased trait, but at what point should legal advice or legal intervention be triggered? When do you think? We don't want to get to America. We don't want to get to the American pattern because it's madness over there, and it always has been. I mean, but what point? When is enough enough?
What we always say is, as soon as you're not comfortable with what's happening and you're worried about it, talk to somebody. I mean, most firms, my firm, we will, we have a specialist team of people who will chat to you and tell you whether there is something more in it, whether you should be speaking to a solicitor, whether you should go through to the sort of next stage, as it were. So my advice, having seen people that have left things and it's become a bit too late, and they've missed their opportunity for legal recourse, is just ask straight away, just have the chat, because specialist clinical negligence firms will not run cases that are not cases. So don't be put off, have a chat, and then that you've done what you can do. And what
I'm going to be very blunt. You are not something that I loathe, which is the ambulance chasing brigade of no win, no fee. Because frankly, I think they should be I honestly think they should be disbarred. I genuinely do. I think it's a disgrace. Again, the American malaise comes over here. America sneezes, we catch a cold. We don't want that nonsense. But sometimes you want a bit. It's not always about compensation. Sometimes you just want to be heard, and maybe it takes a firm like yours or an equivalent to say, look, stop messing these people, this person around. Either a proper apology and take notice of what they're saying. It's not always about money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, so many of our clients just want to be heard. And do you know what they want? They all say this, they want to stop it happening to someone else, else's family member, someone else's child. That's what they want. And that's, at the end of the day, we're all human. We all use the NHS. That's what we all want. We all want things to improve. And we can do that ourselves by increasing and promoting self-advocacy.
Yes. Here we go. I'm just going to put back.
But to advocate for yourself, first you have to advocate for yourself, if you know what I mean. And I'm not trying to be cryptic, but it's like you've got to believe that you're worthy of it before you do it for yourself.
So we know, and especially from our
levels here, aren't we, a little bit? But I agree with everything you say, Emma, profoundly. Absolutely.
So we know that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. We know that from our wonderful weekly legal. It's quite a legal day, actually, Hatti Suvari. But this is again from Scott Lyons in Wolverhampton. Both were investigated. That's the cases. And both were attributed, and I've had this crap as well, to training needs for the same person. Seriously? Both were played down by the surgery and NHS England. Is ignorance a defence? Well, not normally. And how can we affect change?
Oh, lots of questions. Okay.
Yeah.
So look, in a clinical negligence claim, you're obviously going to be looking at whether the people who treated you appropriately, whether they were competent to treat you, and whether they treated you competently. If they haven't been trained to the standard that they should have been done, they haven't had that training, then that is not an excuse. It's not a defence, and it's something that should be looked into. How can we improve things? The way we hope that we can improve things is that, while we do have successful cases, we do raise these issues with the NHSR. The NHSR are very collaborative. They say to us, look, we are raising that issue. We are going to promote training. They will tell our client what they're doing to make things better. There's lots of things that we can do to help improve these things. And part of it is, if you have a complaint, make it. Do tell the NHS what that complaint is. Do write to your hospital. Do write to your GP, and say, look, this is what's happened. I'm not very happy with it. What do you say about it? And they will come back to you and say, look, okay, yeah, we do need to do a bit of training here.
I mean, I will say the majority of people that I encounter, most of them tell great stories about the NHS, and it's only the minority where you hear the horror story. I have to say it's interesting that it's an interesting time we live in, where we need people like you to do these things. It's an interesting, it's that Chinese blessing and curse, isn't there? May you live in interesting times, and that we do. Can I ask you a slightly flippant question? I've never heard of a head of clinical negligence. How did you get the job of being head of clinical negligence? It's a new one on me.
I like it. I think it's a great title.
For my sins, I worked for Slater & Gordon for 11 years. I started as a solicitor and sort of worked my way up. I'd have to ask my boss how I got that job, but hopefully she'd say just because I'm very good
through your shining talent, of course.
Talent and competence and charm. That's how you go.
Thank you.
I didn't mean how did you get it qualification-wise. I'm just like, how does anyone get a job called head of clinical intervention? It was a flippant question, but it's an important subject. Because
undoubtedly, as the NHS and all doctors get under more and more and more stress and strain, it's a horrible self-perpetuating machine. The more strain and stress they're under, the more mistakes or whatever, or not 100% service. I'm trying to put it again into neutral terms, and therefore lawyers get involved. We didn't want it, but that's where we're at.
And actually, to add on to what I said about most people telling the good stories, of those that do tell the bad stories, the majority of that subset, and it is a small subset, but the majority of those people say it's not the individuals in the organisation, it's the systems within the organisation.
I've got nothing but praise for the NHS.
It's very, very rare I hear a complaint about an individual.
Emma, thank you so much for joining us. We've got
Emma, it's been lovely.
It's been great. Come back any time. We've got such a packed show. I'm so sorry, but I know you're on the clock as well.
No, thank
Emma
you very
Doughty, head of clinical negligence at Slater & Gordon, which is a massive legal firm. Bye-bye.
Nice to meet you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Lovely to meet you, Emma. Take care.
And now,
shall we get our next guest on?
Yeah, get the next guest on. Whack 'em on straight away. It's like,
please welcome. It is actually a really legal day, because this gentleman, I do believe, used to be a legal eagle, and then retrained as a psychotherapist, and an absolutely fascinating man. He's got a forthcoming podcast coming up, which no doubt we'll talk about. You can find him at thistrustedplace.co.uk. Go wild, go crazy, for Mr. John Paul Davis. Hi.
Hello. Thanks
welcome.
For having me on.
Okay, thank you. Tell us all about yourself. And we're so cramped today with guests. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you for coming on. Thank you, Neil, for arranging our guest.
No, John, most interesting man.
Tell us about
yourself. I've done a bit of cyber stalking on you, so I know we could probably have you on for days, but we cram as much in as we can.
Okay. Well, in terms of background and things for me?
Yeah, very
quickly. Where you're at now, I think, really.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'm in at the moment. I'm a full-time psychotherapist. I work in Cobham in Surrey online. I also mentor people coming through into the profession, because, the previous guest is a lawyer, and I was a lawyer for 10 years before I made the career change, as you were saying, Neil, into becoming a psychotherapist. So there's a lot of people who contact. There was a video that I did that was put up by one of the accrediting bodies about career change, and Google picked up went onto YouTube, Google picked up on it, and then I get a lot of people, particularly making the career change actually from law to psychotherapy.
Interestingly, before this show, I was talking to a lady who's actually going to start a podcast. And it's all about people that made that big jump, that leap of faith from one thing to another. I think she'd probably be very interested in having you on, actually, if I can put your name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because it's quite a big thing, and it takes a lot of guts to make the change.
John, if it's any support or endorsement, I was a lawyer. I only ever wanted to be a writer. Got the opportunity, packed a suitcase, went off to New York in a week. Left the office in the West End, boom, went straight to Madison Avenue. So, I was lucky.
Fantastic.
I never regretted it. Never regretted it. Took a leap of faith.
And it does seem like a lot because careers are longer, and we can also see that I think people's needs and wants from careers as far as their emotional well-being and that kind of thing, mental health is all going up the list of.
And how do you mentor people and help them stay mentally healthy in that kind of sticky transitional stage? How would you do that? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because making the transition is what I did. I mean, you can do, say, a counselling course in a relatively short period of time, but my course to be an accredited psychotherapist, it's 4 years part-time as a diploma. And then a year foundation course. So you can, one of the reasons is 4 years, I think, is for a kind of personal development point of view over that period. There's a lot of change that happens and that often needs to happen for people. So having it over a prolonged period of time is a good thing. But it also enables people to carry on working in their jobs.
Yeah.
But changing to it financially, I mean, if I'm the primary income earner in the house. So for someone where there is another primary income earner, it's probably a bit easier to make that change. But a question that a lot of people ask, there are probably more men coming into therapy as well now. And something that preoccupies or is important to people, understandably, is how they're going to maintain an income through that period. So, yes, but you can. I mean, in my third year, I think, I was able to start up my private practice then, so I was able to start seeing people and building that. And income from.
Which gets the momentum behind it. And it's interesting that you said it's a personal growth journey. Obviously for your transition, it's a personal growth journey. So I suppose you're in that wonderful position where you've left crumbs. They say success leave clues, and you can that people leave crumbs for other people to follow or leading lights. You can now be that to another, which is fantastic. I have to ask you, because you're based in Cobham, do you know Rosie Whetstone?
I do know Rosie. I'm seeing Rosie Whetstone next Monday for supervision.
She was my therapist for about 2 or 3 years, and she is wonderful, and I always shout her out on the show. Everyone loves Rosie. I've got to send her this footage.
For a while, Neil, and I'm going to ask
Rosie, I'm going to download this and send you this footage because she's amazing. I love her.
I'll mention it to her. I'm seeing her on Monday at 10 o'clock. So I'll how funny. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So I'd like to pick your brain about a topic today that because there's so many different things we could talk about, but this word seems to be getting bandied about an awful lot, and a lot of people seem to have a lot of trouble with people who have this narcissism, but people kind of band it around like people go, "Oh, I'm so OCD," and they haven't got OCD at all.
No, they're not.
Yeah, just because you check the light once doesn't mean you've got OCD. Just because you
can't concentrate doesn't mean
doesn't mean you're a narcissist. So can we first of all, from a professional point of view, get clear on what a narcissist is, and then how to deal with one?
Really definitely. I mean, I think there are degrees of narcissism. A lot of people will have narcissistic traits turned up quite high, but are highly functioning. In relationships, sustaining long-term relationships, working. In fact, the fact that their narcissistic traits are turned up quite high means they're probably doing quite well in chosen careers and that kind of thing. Maybe not so well in their relationship. And then, of course, at the extreme end of the spectrum would be people that have more sort of narcissistic personality disorder, where it is adversely affecting how.
So, in a sense that you can have functional alcoholics, you can have high-functioning narcissists.
They're not really
definitely. Well, I mean, I think
I hate that phrase. Sorry, I hate that phrase. I'm sorry.
Which one, functioning?
I hate that phrase, functioning.
No, I can understand, but it's interesting.
I get it, because people who are serious alcoholics, and I've had, I'm not saying who or what, and they go, "I'm a functioning alcoholic," as though this is a great thing. It's not a great thing. You get rid of the word function.
I never
You're
said
an
it was
alcoholic.
great.
That's what you are.
Hey, Russ, I never said it was great. I'm just saying it's a term that's banded
what
around.
I'm saying is I didn't want to let that slip by because it's something I think it feels like a get out of jail free card. Hey, I'm a functioning alcoholic. Oh, that's terrific.
Oh God, no, I didn't mean it that way at all. No, fair play to you for picking up on that. I didn't mean it that way at all. Back to you, John Paul.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are the kind of sociopaths and who would probably all have narcissistic personality disorder, but a lot of people probably have the trait turned up higher than they might be, and serves them in relationship really. So it's causing them problems in relationships, but they're managing to sustain.
John Paul, can I? There's a lot I wanted to delve into here, but I'm so aware of the time.
Yeah, me too.
Number one. We hear this phrase, Fred up the road is a bloody sociopath. What does a sociopath really mean?
Well, I think it's having particular qualities that you'd associate with it. So a lack of, in some
empathy,
ways,
no empathy.
Narcissism, exactly. So narcissistic people, when those traits are turned up high, you might say in relation to other people, they see people as either dangerous or useful. So it's either somebody's a problem.
Say that again. That's brilliant. That's really important. Because this is a whole level of consciousness. They see people as either, please say that again.
Either dangerous or not dangerous, and therefore not to be thought about, or useful. So what they're fundamentally thinking about all the time is how that person is going to enable them to meet their
Welcome
needs.
to showbiz, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
People are either dangerous or they're useful. That's it. That is showbiz in a nutshell.
And the bit that has less energy and less they occupy less, I suppose, of themselves, I believe, would be that part of affiliation connection with self and others. So it would be, and in that place is where empathy sits. So using empathy would be using my imagination to try and imagine what somebody else feels like. Of course, if all I'm thinking, are they dangerous or not, and are they useful to me or not, they only exist from the point of view of them meeting my needs.
Precisely.
Or being dangerous. And I think you can see an overlap there between somebody who would be sociopathic in that.
But those needs ultimately can never be filled because I'm sure in your work as a psychotherapist, you teach people that no need ever can be truly filled from the outside. It's up to us to do it for ourselves. Therefore, a narcissist will never ever truly have their true needs met, will they?
Yeah. And the types of needs as well that are often important to them will be those needs that are about status, winning, material wealth, how they appear to other people. So
Wolf of Wall Street kind of vibe.
This is like a breakdown of this morning, isn't it?
Right.
Because
often in people might say somebody's narcissistic who sort of, and it would be used that they love themselves, but actually what they are looking for is superiority and specialness and believing. And I don't think actually it is about love. Another way of summarizing narcissism
that isn't self-love, is it?
It isn't. Is that they go between often special and worthlessness as far as their internal experience.
Say that again. Say that again.
I think a good summary of narcissism, that sort of kind of moderate narcissist, I suppose, might be special worthlessness. So that's how they experience themselves. In order, there is
special worthlessness.
Yeah. So there's a perception of fragility. There isn't really a grounded sense of their worth and value. And what they've done in order to compensate for that is to believe that they're special or better than other people and go.
So basically, they're compensating for an internal perceived lack, but they're going about it in a way that will never work. So on the outside, they've got this mask. I'm guessing a bit like the Wolf of Wall Street, Leonardo DiCaprio character, Billy Big Bollocks, But inside, that's a compensation for the worthlessness they feel. But either way, all the time they're going about getting their needs filled from this strategy, it's never going to work. Is that a fair summary?
Jean Paul, are you born with this? Or do you develop it? I wasn't being facetious when I said about showbiz, because if you think about it, what everybody who is an actor or a television presenter or whatever, they're saying, hey, everybody, look at me, because I'm going to entertain you comedians or whatever it might be. I'm going to entertain you for the next 20 minutes, half an hour. That's what they do. That's why they don't work in, Tesco behind the till or whatever, because that's their makeup. So are you born with it? Do you develop it? What's the story?
Well, I think, I mean, children, you might say it's probably a different type of narcissism to somebody who's, for example, sociopathic, but children would be narcissistic. They, we're born with fear and impulses. So a child cries, they don't have empathy. They have to attach to a caregiver and sort of love a caregiver, but they wouldn't have empathy for their mother or father at 2:00 in the morning, if it is a mother or father.
And this is a really interesting I can never say this word, developmental question, because you're right. A child, when it screams for attention, is not having empathy for the parents, but at some time it's going to have to learn to meet its own needs. But that would only be if the parent are meeting their own needs and are able to give it, right?
Yes. Completely. And I suppose one of the things as well during development that parents might say to children, if a child takes something off another child, they might say, oh, you've upset that child. Isn't that a shame for that other child? Look, they're upset. Why didn't you give that back? That was their toy. So in some ways that's demonstrating empathy, isn't it? That we have to work together and that somebody else has their own reality and they're no more or less important than you. And I think that the difficulty can be with somebody who's narcissistic is that other people's reality doesn't exist, say to the extent that it serves my purposes or not.
Either
and that's why people can
or
be manipulative. They'll discard people if they're not useful anymore. If you disagree, then you become dangerous. You become no longer useful.
So we've got to shut them down.
I've had conversations with people where I've made the most innocuous disagreement. I quite like that person on telly. Oh, I'm personally not that keen. I like this version of that song. You like that remix. Oh, I prefer that one. And you would have thought the way they reacted that I was trying to annihilate their whole family. Honestly, the overreaction to that, like it was some sort
of. And then Neil,
let me
ask you. Then Neil, let me ask you one question. Then one last question to Jean Paul. Let me ask you a question, Neil. How much longer did you hang around with those people?
It got to the point where I had to put boundaries in.
There you go. Thank you. And that's what you need to learn.
Quick. Oh, I'd love to get you back on, John Paul. If you will.
Can we have you back, please? Neil, I'm going to leave that with Neil to. All right. Here's all right. One last question, then we must go to our next guest.
We've got to get you back on.
How do you politely shut down a narcissist without the use of a baseball bat, which is usually
well, I think in terms of relating to narcissists, it's very much holding boundaries. It's maintaining, because there can be something very triggering, of course, about somebody invalidating or not attuning to your reality. It's triggering for the person in relationship with them. So it's suggested, it's being clean, calm, maintaining your own calm, I guess. And also there's something called grey rocking now, which is out there, which is to be as non-emotional in some ways as you can be.
I was going to say that. I heard a slightly different term. Grey language is the term I heard.
Yeah. So it's keeping it simple, non-emotive language. So I would see a number of people who are relating to somebody who's they're divorced from, and the correspondence is going backwards and forwards and is antagonistic, and they believe the phrase, well, as you know, the term's used all the time now, but believe the partner might be narcissistic. So it's always, for example, in that correspondence, it's very much keeping it boundaried, clean, taking the emotion out of it. And but the difficulty, of course, is if you're in an ongoing relationship with somebody, whether that's a parent, friend, partner.
Do you know what? I hear so many people talk about it. Can we, if you have time, I appreciate you're a busy man, but could I book you really for an hour for a whole show?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah,
I would. Yeah. If that's all right with you, Russ, I would love to, because I think this is so important. But for now,
the Neil Longie Hour special brought to you by CBS.
Yeah.
Sean Paul,
let's
it's been a pleasure, but I've got to go
John
to our
Paul
next
Davis.
guest. Thank you.
Brilliant.
This trusted place.co.uk. If you'd like to look him up, and I'm going to say this in public while you're on the show, shout her out on MRS once again. Rosie Whetstone,
Whetstone.
Like yourself, I'm sure you're an amazing therapist, but I never worked with you, but I'm sure you are. And Rosie was just the most incredible woman at one of the most difficult times of my life. So I will share. I've really got to have an
talking of incredible women, it's
publicly.
Time to bring on the next incredible woman. Thank you, Jean Paul Davis. We will see you again soon. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, because she's been very polite and I've been watching her for about the last 25 minutes in the digital green room, Hatti Suvari.
Hey,
there you are. Didn't want to keep you waiting any longer.
No problem at all. I'm really sorry. I must apologise.
Money is time, baby. That's how it is.
What are you apologising for?
I have a really bad cold. I tested positive for COVID a couple of days ago.
Oh,
so
you're joking. That's so 2020.
I know. Look, I've been managing it with medication, but I sound awful. So I must apologise for that.
No, you sound the same. See what I did there?
You have
How the
nothing to
hell did you
apologise
get
for. The fact
bloody
that you show
COVID? I didn't
up
think
here.
COVID was still around.
Oh,
Are you
don't,
serious?
honestly. It's just like a really bad cold, but it's one of those
You
things
see, this
which...
is the difference, Hattie, between men and women, because when you get a cold, not even a cold, when you get COVID, you show up and you show up to do your thing and you fight through. Me, if I've got the slightest sniffle, it's like, I'm dying, I've got man flu, I had the life review, I saw the white light, it was calling to me. And that's the difference between you and me.
Hattie, if only you think he's joking.
Listen, I've always said, I think if men had periods, there'd be an A&E.
I have a lot of excuse me. I have a lot of punctuation.
We were just talking about narcissism and having no empathy.
There you go.
That was a joke. That was a joke. I promise you.
Do you know what I say to my husband? Actually, somebody said the sentence to me and I loved it. I said, look, men need to be afraid of women because they bleed for 5 days and they still don't die. How we got onto that, I don't know.
By the way,
I find that funny.
By the way, speaking of all of this, just to plug our sister station, women's radio station, the menopause is a huge issue. We've looked at it here on MRS, but on WRS we have not one but 2 dedicated shows on the menopause. So please always flip over WRS. You can find it all over the place. Just look up women's radio station, menopause shows. They're huge.
It's a big topic. It's a big topic that lots of people are discussing openly and freely.
Finally,
and there's much more information and help available. But you know, it's one of those things which is just part of life, really, isn't it? But you've got to get up and crack on, as I try my best to do.
But it is a massive topic, and it's been brought to me recently, menopause, because half the population are going to experience it, or actually thinking about it, 100% are, because these people are in relationships with other people, and the men need to understand what's going on as well.
And that's what we did here on the day.
And I also met a lady, and the symptoms were so florid that she thought she was actually had early stage dementia, and when she was diagnosed only, in inverted commas, with the menopause, she was the happiest menopausal woman in Bristol. Her words.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So it matters. Wow. It's an important thing. What are we talking about legally today?
Stories. I just want to say thank you, Scotty, for your well wishes. I really appreciate that. So
yeah, we love you, Hattie.
If I sneeze or I spit out, just ignore me. I've got my snotty rag there and everything going, so it's all good. We're going to talk
lovely.
about...
That's really lovely. Thank you. That's a lovely meal.
Thanks for sharing. Really enjoyed that.
We'll stick that bit on TikTok, shall we?
Yeah, that's going on TikTok. Got a legal problem? Well. Don't worry. We've got a snotty
How many views have I got now with my she's chatty, she's happy?
We're doing all right. I think we're over 5,000 or something. But
Come on.
It's one of it gets looked at a lot. I do put regular bits onto TikTok from the shows because I think it's really important to try and promote it in that way. And it's nice. The comments are really nice, and that's good.
I'm very glad you're getting positive feedback. You deserve it because
it's us, isn't it? It's the team here that choose it. It's not just me. It's
I'm not a narcissist, but Hattie, it's all me. Now, here's the thing. I learned so much from that last guy. I realized it's all me. You're sneezing.
I just felt like he was. I just felt like he seemed brilliant, but I felt like he was describing everybody I know, including me. Is that worrying?
No,
should I be worried when I say that?
Can I digress for a second? Can I digress? Let me digress for a second here. Let me digress for a second here with our fabulous guest, Hattie. Right? Just hang on, Longie. Hang on, boy. It's interesting because everything, that wonderful old phrase, everything in moderation. Sometimes you need to be a bit of a narcissist, a slight narcissist, to stop sulking, Neil.
I'm not.
Yes, sulk.
God, I could say. But hold on.
Your money back from
Russ. Let me just ask you this before you finish your sentence, if I may. Who is the judge of what a slight narcissist is?
I am. I'm the judge of everything.
Right. Okay. Fine.
Did you not read my bio? Judge of everything.
Well, there you go. I didn't know you was a solicitor. I didn't know you trained to be a lawyer. Unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
We've actually got a
Did you not know that?
No.
Philip Ross, Elliston and Bieber. It's Philip Ross, Elliston and Bieber, 77 Wimpole Street, W1A 3BQ.
Now that's worrying. That is worrying.
It is really.
Yeah, that's worse than
I was at the High Court. I was at the High Court in the Strand, or the High Court, Supreme Court of Judicature, every single day. Every day for 5 years. Every single day. Here's a little pop quiz for you, Hatti Suvari. How many miles of corridor are there in the High Court on the Strand?
Oh, a lot.
5.
That's
5
a lot. I
miles
know
of
it's
corridors in that
huge.
building. Yeah.
It's huge, and they're
We've
wide as
actually,
well.
without realising it, hit on a brilliant link between the three
Can I
guests
do
today,
this? I've
because
got to
our
interrupt.
very
This
first
is
guest,
so
Emma,
important.
was talking about self-agency. Oh, hang on a minute. Let me just read this out. This is really important.
I am
I've got
so
to say
thrilled. Hattie, forgive me for blocking you. I'm going to
No,
read
not
this
at all.
out. Paul Claridge, a great supporter of the show. I was sending him messages this morning because he had a very pivotal medical meeting. This is great news. Hi, everyone. I'm a bit late today. Ross knows why. Yes, I did. Bit of a health scare. Bit, blimey. But the good news is the results are in. No sign of cancer. Yes, I have other symptoms, which they're addressing. They're referring me to a counsellor for my mental health issues. Yeah, so really, no cancer. The cancer has not come back. That, my friend, is the message of the day. Won't get better than that. Bravo. Fabulous.
Get well soon, Paul.
Great to hear. And you're in the right place to talk about mental health, and you're very welcome, sir. We've got a brilliant link between the three guests today, because our first guest, the lovely lady, was talking. Deborah was talking about self.
Lawyer, can't say lovely lady.
Yeah, I can. She knows what I mean. Self-advocacy. So, is that narcissistic to speak up for yourself, to expect?
This is what I mean. It's such a big topic, isn't it, around that word?
Well, okay, what Paul was describing is narcissism. But if you have to ask the question, I had a conversation with a friend of mine that dated someone who was narcissistic, and she went for therapy for it because they can be quite toxic.
Yeah,
but the very first question she asked the therapist was, am I a narcissist? Because narcissists are really good gaslighters in making you think it's all your bloody fault. And if you have to ask that question, and you care enough to ask that question, which you did, means you're almost certainly not.
Oh, really?
Well, that's a good point.
I like that, Neil. But I have to say, when I was listening to his descriptions of the character traits, I thought, well, I've done that before. Or people want to draw attention to them. It's the way of our world. Social media is all about, look at me and look at the wonderful life I'm having.
There's nothing wrong with marketing yourself. There's nothing wrong with putting yourself out there.
It's all about, everyone has these Facebook friends, but how many people of those are actually going to turn up to their funeral? I've heard that.
None.
So that's the difference. That's the dividing line. But let's take you for an example. You put yourself on TikTok with clips from this show, and of course you're marketing yourself.
Only work.
Only work. That's not narcissism. That's marketing. People have to know who you are, otherwise you're not going to get any business.
But no, I get that. For work, I'm all
doing
over it. But I've never had.
You're doing it with an attitude of service and of being of benefit to people.
Because
how can that possibly be narcissistic?
Because
I'm talking about those people.
Hattie, if we're going to extend the argument, before we get on your subject for today, if we're going to extend that, this is the way that it could be done. I'm taking it to the extreme. Neil's point, you're using it to promote your business. Of course you are. The subtext to that, if one wanted to be both unkind and push it to the limits, is, and I'm promoting my business because I'm the best, because I'm really good at what I do. Now, in my
hang on, that's not the same thing.
That is completely
hang on, that's not the same thing.
Can I just make a point?
I'm the best and I'm better than anyone else, or are you saying I'm really good?
Hold on, one moment. I was actually talking about social media for personal reasons, not for business, not for work. I'm talking about social media is filled with people who personally want to put themselves out there and say, look at me on holiday, look at me eating this, this is where I've gone. I mean, I go to restaurants now, when I go to the bathrooms or even in the corridors, you get young ladies or of all age really doing selfies everywhere, taking videos that they're going to upload. It's all personal. I'm talking about that. So does that mean that half the world that uses social media because of the personal stuff are narcissists?
It depends. But we're not talking about quite the same thing here. There's nuances here. If you're promoting your business and, to use Russ's words, you're saying I'm the best, meaning I'm better than everyone else, then you're a bit of a narcissist. If you're promoting your business on social media and you're quite accurately saying I'm very good at what I do, please use my business, nothing narcissistic about that. No. If you're a young person taking a picture of your meal, my daughter does that. She's not a narcissist. She wants to mark the moment. Oh, I had a delicious meal. She wants to show off a bit to her friends. That's just fun. If you're doing it to say I've had a nice meal and I'm better than you, then that's a problem. It comes down to that again, what we were talking about earlier, specialness and worthlessness.
Isn't it drawing attention? The more attention, the more likes your post gets, the more comments, the more friends that follow you, the better you feel?
Then that's a dangerous game to play, because
no,
it can be
I
a
won't
tad
do that.
fickle, social media. It
Right,
comes
should
down
we
to
get on the
this.
topic?
We
Because
will,
I've got
but I'm just
tons
going
to talk
Can I just
about.
answer that point, and then Neil and I are
Yes.
going to shut the hell
Cool,
up.
we're lively today, aren't we?
We're going to shut the
Oh,
hell
it's
up.
all kicking off.
I do stuff to try and just on my personal stuff to try and just entertain. I try and stay away from politics. I do it to entertain. I do get a lot of reaction, a lot of stuff. Is that the way I judge myself? No.
But does it make you feel good when you get the likes and the comments?
No, does it make
That's
me
the
feel
question.
good?
Of course
No.
it does. Do you think, oh, it reached out to people?
No, I feel that no. Do I feel good about myself because of that? No. Do I think, they found that interesting? I'm pleased. That's as far as it goes. I don't walk around going,
I think we need to do a show on this.
Although
Trust me.
Let's get on to your subject.
Right.
Can I just say
Michelle.
one thing really quickly?
Go on,
With tongue
Neil.
in cheek,
Go on, Neil.
also a little bit of what you fancy does you good. Because I must admit, if I do a really good show, particularly when I was on Capital and I was a bit famous, it's a hell of a buzz. Yeah. And it's good. It's okay to be excited about that.
It's okay to be excited, sure.
You know, and
I'm excited about coming on Men's Radio. What are you saying?
We'd like to hear
You're
what you have to say.
Are you saying that only Capital gives people that buzz? Because MRS gives me that.
Thank you, Hatti Suvari, top lawyer in the land.
Yeah, but we're talking about mental health, not Boyzone here, for goodness sake. But yeah. It doesn't make me a narcissist because I'd like people to watch this and think I'm a fairly good presenter. I don't think so. If I got on here thinking I'm better than anyone else in the mental health community,
trust me, no one would endorse
that's
that,
different.
Neil. We've seen your work.
Right, enough. Time out. Let's get on to this topic.
Sorry,
he sounds like Muttley. Right.
Everybody says that.
Hattie, what's the topic for today?
Cost of living mortgages. What are your rights? So last week, as we all know, the Bank of England raised the interest rates for the 13th time in a row to 5%. It's the highest, actually, as you all probably know, highest rates since 2008. It was very interesting because in real money terms, if you're remortgaging now, you're going to be paying around 61% more for your mortgage than pre-December 21. If your mortgage term has run out and you're remortgaging your property. So there's a few things that I thought would be really helpful for people to know. So I want to talk about what your mortgage lender should do if you're in arrears, top tips when negotiating your mortgage deal or remortgage deal, when and at what point your lender can go to court to force a sale of your property, because that's actually a bit of a murky area. People don't know much about that, and where to get free help and advice if you're having issues with your lender. That's what I thought I'd try and cover today. So I'm going to be as quick as I can because we've got 13 minutes and I'm just aware of that. So yeah, of course, a mortgage is essentially a contract secured on your property. Each lender has their express terms and it's formally legally binding. Mortgage lenders are regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority, also referred to as the FCA, who sets down the rules of how lenders need to deal with their customers under the FCA's, and I won't bore you with it, but it's the Mortgage Conduct of Business Rules, also referred to as MCOB. And we have the overriding Law of Property Act 1925, which interestingly was only set up in 1925 to reduce the number of legal estates to 2. So we've got the freehold and we've got the leasehold. That's what that was set up for. So if you are in arrears, the FCA's rules are very strict on what your lender has to do. You can't just be bullied, pushed around, confused, put into a dark place where you feel you've got no choice. Your lender has a duty to treat you fairly, which means they must consider any suggestions that you make to deal with repayment problems or arrears, that you don't just take it for gospel that only your lender can dictate that. Yes, they have to agree that with you, but they must consider what you're proposing. Your lender should only start court action to repossess your home as a last resort if they can show and prove that you've sat down and you've had the conversations and you've shown your affordability and they've said to you that is not acceptable and why it's not acceptable to accept your payment terms. The lender must consider delaying your interest payments to reduce your monthly repayments for a short term, which could help you out. They must consider extending your mortgage term, again, to reduce your monthly payments if they've shot up. And they must also consider to add any arrears onto your total mortgage debt, rather than saying to you, right, for example, you're £3,000 in arrears. Unless you pay that in 28 days, we're going to force the sale of your home. We're going to take possession of your home. So these are really important things that your mortgage lender must consider. And the lender has to allow you enough time to sell your property if you cannot come to a payment arrangement with them. My top tip on that is keep a record of all your calls with your lender, who you spoke with, the date and time, and just even if it's a single bullet point, what was said. Because wherever you end up, whether it's in the formal complaint box of your lender, whether it's at court, this is what people are going to need to see. The court will need to see it. Or if you make a formal complaint because your lender did not adhere to these rules, to either the FCA or to your lender's complaints department, they're going to say, well, who did you speak with? When was that?
Yeah.
What did you say?
Would I be right in saying, given what you've said, that if people are falling into arrears and there's a problem, that it is, for want of a better word, safe to approach the mortgage company or the people you're dealing with a reasonable expectation? You know, they're not monsters. If you approach them with a fair proposition, they can and will. You know, they're not the troll guarding.
They're under a duty to, Neil.
Guarding the bridge. You know, they're not monsters.
Yes, 100%. And if you're ever on the phone to your mortgage lender and somebody comes on the phone who's a little bit unfriendly, although I think those days are long gone, but if that happens, you can say, I'd like to speak to somebody else, please. You should not feel bullied. You should not feel scared. I can understand you could feel worried because of the financial predicament you may be in, but there are very, very strict laws and rules of what a lender has to do. And right now, lots of people are going to feel this interest rate rise this year, next year, and maybe ongoing, because if they do tie into a new rate, as I said, the average mortgage is going up by 61% if you haven't remortgaged since 21.
Is there anything people can do if they're considering taking on a mortgage to maybe future protect themselves a bit?
There isn't really, to be honest, Neil. I don't know of any insurance policies, unless you've got some form, and I don't know much about insurance at all, but policy that covers your income should you be unwell or out of work. But again, that falls really into insurance, and I'm not quite sure.
That was Keyman Insurance, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was
part of it.
I thought Keyman was when you ran your own business.
Yeah.
You're talking about critical illness.
Critical illness is different, but it does link into Keyman. I think Keyman is when you are a one-man band and you run your business, all your income comes from that, and you get the insurance that could possibly cover your outgoings. But
Keyman back in
yeah, they still got Keyman insurance. I'm aware of it.
I used to have all that nonsense back in the day. Now, let's answer this one from Wolverhampton. If you're on a mortgage arrears repayment plan, this will show on your credit file. If this is your last resort and the only affordable option, is there a way to avoid this being recorded? Excellent question from Scott.
To my knowledge, Scotty, there isn't, because the lender has the power on what they record on your credit file. And actually, that's a really good topic. I'm going to do a topic on credit files because there's lots of interesting things to say on that. Yeah, to my knowledge, it is they're up to them on what they want to report and how. But obviously, you know, missed mortgage payments or getting into a payment plan means you're paying less than what you contractually said you would. So I think they can actually go and put that on your credit report. But before any court action is taken, there are, again, apart from the list that I just gave you of what your mortgage lender needs to be able to do, they must also provide you with a list of payments you've missed, details of your total outstanding amount, list out in total the amount of arrears and charges. And the lender must inform you that they're starting a repossession claim against you. And they must also advise you to contact your counsel for homelessness help.
Whoa.
If your lender doesn't do any of that or misses out on a key part of that, you can make a formal written complaint to your lender. Okay, so that's the first place you'd go to say, look, I'm not happy either with the service, either they're missing stuff out, they're not doing things properly. And the response from the lender has to be within 8 weeks. If you're not happy with the response, it doesn't provide you don't feel with a fair, reasonable remedy, or it's not good enough, then you take your argument, your claim or your complaint rather to the financial ombudsman at financial-ombudsman.co.uk. ombudsman.org.uk.
So if someone's in trouble
Yeah.
listening to this or watching the recording of it, what I'm getting from this, it's fair to expect to be treated fairly. It's because it's very easy to panic in situations like this. And what I'm getting from this is there's several steps, and it's not just like suddenly you're on the poorhouse, boom. You know, there's steps and there's things you can do, and the companies have to be reasonable to you. And to be fair, from both points of view, why wouldn't they be? Because if you offer to pay a little bit back of your money or come to an arrangement, ultimately they're going to get their money back. So it's a win-win for them to be reasonable to you. So I'm saying, am I fair to say don't worry too much if you find yourself in this situation?
Well, don't bury your head in the sand, and don't be afraid. And I think you touched on this earlier as well. Don't be afraid of calling your mortgage company directly. I would say I wouldn't really call the broker if you had a broker set up your mortgage. Deal with the lender directly so that communication is clear. You can keep a record of it, and they can act on it directly with you.
I did hear a story once of a lady, and she had all the typical fears. She was in debt to an awful lot of people. She had an awful lot of creditors, and she was, I suppose, putting her head in the sand. She was scared, basically, and it's an understandable.
Well, it's your home. It's
everything,
people,
isn't it?
Yeah.
So what she thought they were going to be. She thought she was going to be dealing with monsters. And she rang them one by one, and she spoke to them directly. She told the truth about the situation, apologized to pay a little bit back when she could, and 100% of them was reasonable and amenable to her requests. So I guess the point I'm making is, don't think you're approaching monsters. You're not.
Two things, 2 points, and Hattie, I'd like your input. Number one, Neil's absolutely right. That was a great comment. Number 3, 1. Don't put your head in the sand. It's not going to go away. It's like a bad illness. Trust me, you need to deal with it. 2, do it quicker rather than later.
Yes.
3, you're not dealing with them. You're not dealing with the mafia or a triad or a Maltese gang or something. You're dealing with professionals. They're not going to be as horrible, so don't catastrophize it. It's all part of mental health. That's why I thought this was a great subject. Don't you will find. But the other thing
there will always be a deal to do, provided you can make a contribution. And to add to that, I just want to say, Russ, if you are going to go into a payment plan, do a payment plan that you can afford and stick to, not one that you wish you hope to be able to, because the last thing you want to do is do a deal and then have to go back and say, I can't adhere to that. Go in lower than what you believe you can absolutely afford. Set a time limit. Tell your mortgage lender how you're going to review that time limit. The more you communicate with them, the more honest and upfront you are.
You've hit the 2 key words. You've hit the 2 key words, haven't you? Honesty and communication. Yes. And then it serves everyone, because they want to mitigate.
They'd rather have something.
It's better than you took the words right out of my mouth. To have 10% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
I know this is. I've got to put up some of these excellent comments, but the other thing is, Hattie, and it's slightly off topic. It's the same with the inland, not the VAT, because
I know what you're going to say. I had to make a complaint about somebody at the Inland Revenue. They were on the phone to me, behaving so inappropriately, and I was so glad the phone was recorded. But look, there's a couple of things I need to say on this topic.
Quickly, what I was going to say, very quickly, with the Inland Revenue, even they'd rather have something than nothing, and say, this is what I can do.
But I do find them quite aggressive.
Oh yeah,
I have found them quite aggressive, Russ, and I've made complaints, and I have to say the complaints were dealt with really, really well by people who apologise and acknowledged that I was being spoken to in a way which was not acceptable.
Correct.
I asked somebody, I had HMRC, I remember I was on the phone to them a few years ago, and they asked me why I was buying food instead of paying my tax.
Jeez.
They literally said it in those terms.
I like Fortnum and Masons, and I'm not closing my account.
I've never shopped there before. No, but let me just tell you this: early repayment charges. Okay, most people think that early repayment charges, you can't move on it, you can't shift on it. It's when you're coming out of a deal early for whatever reason. You might need to sell your property to get rid of the mortgage so that you can then go and live in another way, maybe with family, maybe to rent. You can. People think that, can you dispute it? Can you actually say, look, I think that's a bit harsh, it's a bit high, I know I contracted to it, I signed up to it. Actually, the FCA again has very strict rules, and you can dispute and negotiate sometimes with some lenders early repayment charges. So don't assume that what your lender states you have to pay or do is in line with the FCA's rules.
That's key, because they have their own internal company policies.
Yes,
and that might not be
exactly.
the overarching.
And that's a biggie, because some people, you know, in this day and age, it wouldn't, you know, I know I've got a friend who's selling. They won't be able to afford their mortgage once the rates change. They have to sell, move up with parents, and then perhaps buy again. Early repayment charge, or you lose nothing by trying to negotiate. You lose nothing. You will only gain something if you end up and you can renegotiate it.
Hattie, I want to
There's one more thing I've got to say.
Go ahead.
Please do.
Support for mortgage interest loan, SMI. The government has got a website. Okay, just a little bit on this. You might be able to qualify to get a loan, which is only repayable back to the government on a very low interest rate when you sell or transfer the ownership of your property to pay the interest element of your mortgage. Go onto the gov.uk website and just search in the search bar support for mortgage interest loans.
Brilliant.
You might qualify.
Most important out of all of this, we wish you well.
Sorry, Russ.
Well, I was going to say, most important from Neil and I and everybody watching around the world, we wish you well.
Thank
we
you.
wish you a speedy recovery. Bless you for being brave
I'll leave
enough.
you with a laugh, hopefully. You know that tax inspector that you were talking about?
Yes.
I'll leave you with that thought. What's the similarity between that kind of tax inspector and a stork?
Yay!
I have no idea.
The answer is they can both stick their bills up.
That's a
Bye-bye,
TikTok
everybody.
moment.
See you Friday. Thanks, Hattie. Bye now.
Bye. Thank you, guys.